I'm Rick Scott, Chief of Police for the San Luis Obispo Police Department. I want to talk to you about a tragic event that took place on May 10th, 2021. On that day, Detective Luca Benedetti was killed in the line of duty. He was a beloved father, a husband, and a friend to all that knew him. He was a veteran officer with over 10 years with the department, and he was dedicated to this community, which he dearly loved. Detective Steve Orozco was also severely injured during the incident. Detective Orozco continues to suffer from permanent and debilitating injuries as a result of the senseless attack on our officers. This video depicts an incident in which Detective Benedetti and Orozco were shot while serving a search warrant. Our goal in releasing this video is to provide valuable context supporting the release of information about this tragic incident. Our hope is it provides greater insight into what happened that terrible day. What you're about to see is video from both police in-car and officer-worn cameras. This material is deeply disturbing and viewer discretion is highly advised. In the early morning hours of May 8, 2021, the police department received a report of a burglary of a business that occurred at 280 Higuera Street. 22 hours later, a second burglary of a business was reported at 157 Higuera Street. With security camera video, investigators were able to link both burglaries as being committed by the same person driving the same vehicle. However, the suspect in the video was wearing a mask and their identity remained unknown. On May 10th at approximately 4 a.m., police were alerted to a third business burglary at 120 Tank Farm Road. Just 90 minutes later, a fourth burglary occurred at 888 Ricardo Court. Again, security video showed what appeared to be the same vehicle, a light-colored GMC Envoy, as seen in the previous burglaries. While investigating this fourth burglary, security video was shown to the business owner who believed he possibly recognized the suspect vehicle as belonging to a former employee, 35-year-old Edward Jerome. Pursuing this lead, police records indicated that Jerome lived in an apartment at 3175 Camilla Court. His apartment was located just within 2 miles of all 4 burglary locations. Detectives checked into his background and learned that Jerome had several minor contacts with police, including a welfare check in July of 2020. A coworker said that Jerome had shown signs of paranoia and was skeptical of police and may want to harm them. An officer conducted a welfare check by phone and Jerome was found to not be in distress, telling officers he had no desire to harm himself or others. Detectives also found a report of a second welfare check in October of 2020. A relative had called and expressed concern a firearm might be in his apartment. Before the police arrived, the apartment manager searched for Jerome, but he was not present, and officers were subsequently canceled from this call. The police had no cause or legal right to enter Mr. Jerome's apartment to search for him or for any weapons at that time. After conducting the background check and just hours after the fourth burglary, detectives went to Jerome's address on Camilla Court and found the same light-colored GMC Envoy in each of the previous burglaries. Some of the items reported stolen in the burglaries could be observed in plain view through the windows of the vehicle. Detectives conducted surveillance of Jerome's residence throughout the day until that afternoon when a judge authorized a search warrant for Mr. Jerome's apartment. He was never observed outside of his apartment, and therefore there were no opportunities for officers to approach him regarding the search warrant. At 5:13 p.m., detectives placed 2 phone calls to Mr. Jerome in hopes that he would grant access to his home and peacefully comply with the search warrant. Both of these calls went unanswered. Detectives then approached the second-floor apartment and repeatedly knocked on the door with no response. An officer on the landing discovered his body-worn camera was not activated, so officers knocked on the door again and announced their presence in order to document compliance with the legal notice requirements. With no answer at the door, officers then attempted to use a key provided by the property manager. This key did not work the lock. In total, officers spent several minutes outside of the door attempting different alternatives to making a forced entry. Officers then had to utilize a ramming device to forcefully open the door of the apartment, after which they held their position and did not enter the residence. As you will see in the following video, Detective Benedetti began calling out to Jerome by name without receiving a response. Officers continued to wait and did not enter the apartment. Inexplicably and without warning, Detective Benedetti was suddenly shot by Jerome from inside the apartment. Tragically, Detective Benedetti sustained fatal wounds while positioned on the upper deck of the stairway. Jerome then exited the apartment and continued to shoot at officers from the top of the stairway, striking Detective Orozco in the arm and in the head. We will now show you the officer camera video of that moment. It has not been edited except for audio and video portions showing the graphic shooting of Detective Benedetti.
Going hot.
You haven't had your camera on this whole time? Police department, search warrant, open the door, we're gonna force entry. Giron?
Edward, Giron.
Edward, open the door. Edward, it's the police department, open the door. Edward, come out here.
Shots fired, shots fired. He's got a gun, he's shooting at us. All units, all units.
Having already shot 2 officers, Jerome then took Detective Benedetti's rifle from his body. Moments later, Jerome continued to shoot at officers from his elevated position, but now using Detective Benedetti's department-issued rifle. 2 officers were in position to return fire, striking Jerome multiple times. Jerome then retreated back into his apartment. In the video, you can hear an officer talking with a wounded Detective Orozco once the gunfire stopped. He was asking him if he was okay. Seconds later, a single shot is heard from inside the apartment as Jerome was alone, having just shot himself in the head with Detective Benedetti's rifle.
He's got a gun, he's shooting at us. All units, all units. Are you okay, Steve?
Hit in the head and arm. Did you get it?
I think so. He came out, he pointed his gun at me.
I copy ahead count 4223. Respond.
A rescue team was formed and moved up the stairs. Detective Benedetti was found fatally injured outside the doorway. Officers then entered the apartment for the first time and found Jerome dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. An officer transported a severely injured Detective Orozco to a trauma center for life-saving care. We are very thankful that Detective Orozco survived this deadly encounter. San Luis Obispo police served the burglary search warrant and located additional items of stolen property inside Jerome's apartment, which was taken during the business burglaries. After the incident, the San Luis Obispo Sheriff's Office led an independent investigation that concluded Mr. Jerome murdered Detective Benedetti, attempted to murder Detective Orozco and other officers, and then took his own life that day. Any use of force is a matter we take very seriously, especially when it involves the loss of a life. The San Luis Obispo Police Department prioritizes the sanctity of life. We remain proactive in our response to criminal activity in our community, and we are dedicated to the high level of service we are proud to provide. Any loss of life is extremely painful. The loss of an officer honorably serving their community is unconscionable. Our hope is that this information may help promote healing for our department and for our community through an open and transparent dialogue based on facts, however tragic and heartbreaking they may be. We will never forget Detective Benedetti and his family, and we will faithfully honor Detective Benedetti and Detective Orozco and all of our team members who bravely serve the department and a grateful community.